Fab. Hi, folks. Welcome to this Agile 20 Reflect event. I'm delighted to be hosting this one. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Sathpal Singh. Everybody calls me Sath, and I'm one of the trustees of the festival. I'm delighted to be doing this session with Dan. We spoke some time ago, and it does seem like a long time ago, so it's amazing how fast these things come around. So delighted to be doing this, and yeah, it's great to virtually be back in New York. I hope to get back there in person at some point soon. I do have a few formalities to go through, I think, as most of you are now familiar with. So let me just find my slides quickly. We'll get through them, and then I will hand over to Dan. Right. So, yep. Welcome. Agile 20 Reflect Festival, as I think you all know, because I recognise so many faces, which is awesome. Month-long festival celebrating and marking the 20th anniversary of the original signing of the manifesto. It's been an amazing month. We're into week 4 now. It's just been a real roller coaster ride. Loved every minute of it. And yeah, we've got nearly just under 800 events, which is remarkable. Yes, it's the festival has been built entirely by volunteers. Truly global collaborative efforts. It's tremendous and humbling to be involved in something of this scale. If you do fancy sharing tonight on social, please do use the hashtag. You'll see it in the bottom left hand corner, and I'm sure some of you are familiar with the website. Lots of great content on there about the team and various other things in relation to the festival. And actually, I've recently just published a new section where we're kind of collating sort of festival stories. So if you do have something interesting that you'd like to share about your own experiences, you're welcome to do so. And also some of our supporting organizations there in the top there, being great supporters of the festival. As ever, that it's a community policy supporting this festival. Everybody's involved in the festival is adhering to this policy. In short, we simply ask that you're respectful to one another. We want everyone to have an awesome time. If you'd like to read the community policy in more detail, you'll find it on the website in the footer. And as I said earlier, the festival has been built entirely by volunteers. It's entirely free, but there is an option, an opportunity to donate if you should wish to do so. You'll find that on the website. And yep, the slide feels pretty entertaining at this stage, given we're well into week 4. But yeah, it's well and truly in full swing. Still plenty of stuff going on, and we're going to have a really good kind of closing ceremony over the weekend. So, and we'll see what goes on thereafter. So, yep, plenty in the program yet for you all to enjoy. So do keep checking out the calendar. And I think that's that. I'm delighted to welcome Dan Eberle here tonight. Dan's our guest speaker. He's a writer, producer, and agile coach at the New York Times. He's got over 20 years of experience, and he's also the host of the Agile Lean New York Times meetup. So that's pretty awesome. I'm a meetup host myself, so fellow meetup host right here. Awesome. And with that, I'm going to hand over to Dan and let him take it away. It's going to be a really thoroughly enjoyable session, I think, tonight. Something quite close to my heart. So over to you, Dan. Let's get going.
All right. Thank you very much, Sath, for that warm welcome. So hey, everybody. My name's Dan, and Sath pretty much said it all. I'm an Agilist. I also come from the creative arts. That's really sort of the space that I enter the Agile conversation from. A lot of folks become Agile coaches by way of being software engineers, development managers. A lot of people come from project management, change management. And for me, I actually got into Agile because I was a filmmaker, and I was also working in advertising, as many filmmakers do, and started to enter the realm of technology, where all industry eventually has landed for the most part, and realized all of these sort of correlating factors, all these elements where I realized that the ethos, the the underlying philosophy of Agile was actually something that I already believed, and it was just a simple codification of kind of where my principles lived. So this today is, while this is certainly a wonderful Agile festival celebrating, commemorating kind of our 20th anniversary, I don't really think of coaching as strictly an Agile thing. And while I will kind of touch on the sort of the Agile theater of operation, this is one of the reason why I like this talk so much is because it is so portable. These concepts, the coaching stance, the approach to coaching that I take and that my mentors utilize, I just find that there is so much utility there, no matter what you're doing, whether you are a straight up Agile coach, whether you are a family member, or just working on any kind of team, quite literally any kind of team doing virtually any kind of work. Any member of any organization can benefit from this toolkit. So I'm a big proponent of it. Like I said, it's sort of been, a lot of these things have been around for a long time. And one of the cool things about Agile, and all of the best things that we know in Agile, is really just how useful that they can be and how portable that information is. So I will just say that there's probably a mix of Agile experts here. I spotted a few here to make me nervous, and then also probably a fair amount of people that are either new to Agile or have no idea what Agile is, and that's okay, because there's no prerequisite to understand this at all. As a matter of fact, it's one of the things I like about it, is just how useful it is all by itself, and yet it plugs into so many things. So before I get into exactly what coaching is, because we all kind of think we have a sense of it, I will say that it is sometimes misunderstood. That the definition of what a coach is fairly wide ranging. But I will say that in the world of Agile coaching, probably life coaching, executive coaching, it does tend to center around a certain application. So I will just also mention what as far as the kind of coaching I'm talking about is not, which is like a sports coach. So a sports coach, or a Burgess Meredith type character from Rocky, kind of standing on the sidelines, yelling at people, telling them to punch meat and chase chickens and all that stuff. That's not quite the coaching that I'm talking about. It may involve some of those things, but strictly speaking, the kind of coach I'm here to describe does not exactly work quite that way. So to illustrate this point, and for those of you that know me, know that I'm not the world's most interactive guy, but I'm going to make an exception. So here's my one activity for today. I want you to just take a moment, and if you have something to write with, that is great. If not, you can use whatever implements are available to you. But I just want you to think about some people that changed your life, that had an impact on you, where you would not be the person that you are today if it were not for this individual's contributions. We're talking about people who you would not be where you are, who you are. You would just not be the same. So just take a moment. I'll give you, I don't know, usually this is pretty easy, about a minute. And I just want you to write down a couple of their names and some moments that you remember where whatever epiphany it took place kind of clicked for you. So it could be something that they did for you, that they said to you, whatever it is. It usually doesn't take much to remember this. So I'll shut up for a moment and just go ahead and write down a few. Don't worry, you don't have to share these with the group if you don't want to. All right, so we'll give you a few more seconds to wrap that up. All right, great. So next, I'd love for you to think about a couple of people who tried to manage your performance. People that tried to influence or change the way that you were doing something. All right, think about their names and what they did. All right, and what I'm talking about here, this could be in the form of some constructive criticism, perhaps unsolicited, perhaps solicited. It could be a performance review at work. Doesn't have to be a work thing, but it could be. Just want you to think about a few of those people, their names and what they did. And bonus points if you learned anything from that experience. All right, great. So we have some very specific kind of results that come from this or this exercise usually. My question to you is, when you were writing down the names and the moments of people who changed your life, what did this elicit in you? In other words, how did this make you feel? And I don't want to know what you think, not what did it make you think about, but literally what visceral feelings did it bring up for you? Anyone, feel free to shout it out.
Empowered.
Awesome.
Yeah, I would say inspired and wanting to do that for other people.
Loved.
Fantastic. Yeah. I like what Dave said about wanting to, it actually didn't just prompt him to feel a certain way, actually prompted him to want to do something, right?
Dan, I'm not sure how to describe this, but it's that feeling of when people see you as a human and the vast potential that every human has. Like that's, I don't know, I don't know how to describe it as a feeling.
To me, what I hear you say, and feel free to contradict me, but it sounds like validated.
It's more than that. Maybe it's aware of your own, aware of my own maybe potential. Like it's more than that. It's not that I've validated, but when I thought about these people, it made me think. It made me feel that it's just about this endless potential that we all have, and they created that as awareness of potential. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, awesome.
And I would just piggyback on that and add maybe valued and worthy.
Shane, I think what you described to me sounded like good old encouragement.
Sure.
He definitely encouraged, but it's, if you think about that sort of imposter syndrome, where you're in that, I don't feel like I should be here. It's removing that, and that's I think it's even a wee bit more than encouraged. But this is why I'm struggling to find the actual words to describe.
Whole.
Shane, oh, sorry, go ahead. What you got?
Whole.
Whole
And complete. Whole.
Beautiful. Yeah, as Shane, as someone who definitely has his share of imposter syndrome, and as an Agile coach, that is probably the #1 topic of conversation with with clients is this, especially one-on-one coaching. That's a big topic, right? Everyone feels like they've tricked everyone into thinking that they, into thinking they belong here. And there is something about the opposite of that, the alleviation of that sense, that weight. It is hard to verbalize exactly what that is, but I know what you mean. Great. So this was people who changed your life, that had this major impact. So question about #2. So in this second one here, people who tried to manage your performance. How did this make you feel?
Angry.
Okay, awesome.
And the opposite of worthy.
All right. What else do we got?
Small. Disempowered.
Mm-hmm.
No, I usually want to kick them.
Violent. All right. Undervalued, absolutely.
I looked at this from a completely different view, and I thought about the great managers of performance I've had, and where they were trying to manage my performance, but it was in that coactive space. They trusted me to, be as creative as I can, and that I had the solution. So they'd managed the environment to enable that, and that I don't know why I thought in that space, but
it figures, Shane, that you picked the one example that is not what I was looking for. However, that is actually you're helping to make my point, though, because and for those of you that don't know what Shane's talking about, the sort of this coactive coaching it's more than just a technique or a toolbox. It's like a whole deal. And I will just say that it is the opposite of what we're talking about here in a lot of ways. So here's the point of this, if you haven't already gotten it, is that in this space, we're sort of in the clouds. I'm going to do some cheesy visuals now. This is a cloud, by the way. Looks more like a plume of smoke. But in terms of how this makes us feel, we are, for me anyway, and I think perhaps in your cases as well, we're sort of we feel pulled by a vision. Someone has helped elucidate a possibility on the horizon, and we feel pulled to that beyond the strictures of our current capability. Right? We feel pulled. Now, I have this silly play on words in the name of this talk that this is a pull system for the heart. And it's really like, in lean terms, this is not exactly what a pull system is. It's just kind of a joke for you Agile nerds. But I will say that this is really what I meant by that, is that when you are inspired, either by someone or by yourself or by an occurrence, and you realize, like a lot of what Shane was talking about, realizing your potential, realizing that there is something there. Maybe you don't know how you'll get there, but somehow you feel like, hey, it's not impossible. So this is being pulled. And that vision, we talk about vision statements, all this corporate stuff, right? And really what vision is it's about creating something new. It's about envisioning something that does not exist today and could exist out there somewhere. And it might be about you, it might be about some other thing. It could be, we're a black box theater troupe and we have this great idea and this is the outcome that we're shooting for. We don't really know how we're going to do it, but we are going, now that we've defined it, maybe we can kind of assemble and organize our collective imaginations and get there. Down here, we kind of feel constrained in a box, right? And for me, I feel pushed. I feel like I'm getting pushed in a direction. Now, I do want to say, that before I get like super hippy dippy on you all, something that we don't frequently acknowledge in every, Agile class or whatever, we're into. We sometimes speak about things in kind of binary terms, and a lot of time, or even like in quadrants, and life is not like that, right? And too often we don't acknowledge that there is a place for this. There is a place for feedback. There is a place for directive action. Now, there's this guy, this character that many of you know, Edward Deming. I am a huge Deming nerd. I have a life-size poster in my bedroom. And basically the father of the quality management revolution. Amazing character. I always tell people if they want to like learn about what Agile, Lean, and all these cool modern things are about, just read about this guy from the 40s and you will understand. Anyway, I will just say that Deming has lots of great, awesome quotes. One of my favorites here is that authority is the last resort. He talks about authority being the last resort. Anybody want to know why? I kind of have the answers right here. You gave them to me, but why is authority the last resort?
Doesn't create that pull.
No, yeah. In fact, it causes authority pushing, unfortunately, even though it is necessary sometimes, it causes a limbic response. That's why when we hear words like accountability, we get a little tiny anxiety attack every time. I do anyway. Maybe I'm oversharing. But the point is that we have this emotional, irrational reaction because we feel attacked. We feel like you're trying to take my baby somehow because we care. If you care and somebody gives you some feedback to tell you that you're caring wrong, essentially, you're not caring correctly, let me help you care correctly. We naturally are very defensive, even in instances where we asked them to tell us, because really we just want people to say, no, keep doing what you're doing, it's great. Now, I will just say that there are instances where feedback is necessary. This is part of life. We should accept it. However, we should also accept that we get a lot further with this. So I take a long time explaining this because some people think that they know what coaching is, and they are doing this. This is not coaching, unfortunately not. Now, this is something, but it isn't coaching. Now, will a coach give feedback? Possibly. And we'll talk about where that happens. But spoiler alert, it doesn't happen very early. In fact, one might say that if you start feeding back too early in any relationship, any kind of relationship, you are really screwing things up. Or maybe you don't care and you're fine with that. But if you care about your relationships, you will try to save directive feedback for only the most exigent circumstances, really, because you get further with this. So the question is, how do we harness all this? How do we make this happen? And the answer is, if you're really good and you make this part of your discipline as a practitioner of whatever you do, you can harness the awesome power of this pull, this vision style of leadership. And it's not easy. And actually, the more power that you have, the harder it is to do this right. It takes very, very special handling because people with power and influence frequently don't understand just how powerful and influential that they are, and how sometimes their very presence can, even the nicest boss on earth with the best intentions, can sometimes mess up the power dynamic in the room and things like that. So that whole emotional intelligence thing, being aware, being self-aware, and developing as much empathy as you can and understanding for the people in your world, in your constituency, in your colleagues. This is why it's so important. It's not just to be a nice person and be well liked. That's great, but it's also about actual utility. It's about how effective you are at what you do. So the most effective colleagues, partners, friends, loved ones, everyone we know that we love and appreciate the most tend to index more up here. These are the people that we look to more often. Even sometimes they're wrong, they get it wrong. Of course, it happens. But I'm just saying that this is the place of influence and of trust. And it takes some time and some work on the part of the person playing the coach in this instance to develop the kind of rapport where you can get there, right? It's not something you can just walk in the door and inspire everyone, unless you're Michael Landon. Now, down here, again, it's important to understand a lot of these techniques that we talk about in Agile or in any kind of genre of work or professionalism, or even just being a good creative partner, has to do with literally understanding what you are doing in a moment. So all of these annoying meetups that we go to all the time and tell people about that nobody cares about, and the blogs that we read and the books and stuff, it's not just about like filling our heads with lots of interesting facts and trying to be the smartest person in the room. It is actually about trying to refine our sense of self-awareness so that we know when to do the right thing at the right time. And we are more likely to do it the more awareness we have. So anyway, I digress. I feel pushed or pulled. Now, before we go any further, let me just, I'm going to keep referring back to this a few times, but I would ask this, and somebody already said that this sort of made them, this one made them feel like wanting to do for others what was done for them. I'm curious to know, just generally this exercise, anyone have any thoughts about what, just having done this and talked about it a little bit, what it sort of motivates you to want to do? Feel free to just shout it out if you have a thought. And there's no wrong answer here.
I don't want to be the first person speaking all the time, but just to break the sort of the silence, this motivates me to get people in the space. Like I want to have people feel this way, empowered, inspired, awareness of, you know, it feels to me like this is being human. There's like this inert humanness about this. So it inspires me. I will add one thought around what you're showing us here. Is there another space in this model where it's lost? Maybe just as a thought. So you might push people, maybe many managers are pushing people in different directions. Maybe, yeah, I'm wondering, can you get lost in between these two domains?
Well,
or
and I think that both of these approaches can have good and bad results, can carry risk. And we'll get exactly how this relates to kind of what we're talking about today in a moment, but I will just say that this in particular carries a tremendous amount of risk in the same way that it carries a lot of risk to be the sole decision maker in a large group of people. So you might be, you know, in Hollywood, we watch a Hollywood movie with the heroic captain of the ship who makes decisions for everybody and you know, somehow saves the day. It is very inspiring, but we recognize, especially those of us that work in this space, recognize it's actually, frankly, bullshit. Because the truth is that it takes many people, many minds working together, failing and succeeding together, and really pulling together. And I guess that could also be the plot of a Hollywood movie as well. But the point being is that there is a tremendous amount of risk for a single person to claim to know what is the right thing to do in a given moment, and to basically push someone else to do it. And so yes, you may push someone to do the right thing. It is entirely possible, and that could lead you to success. Now, the question is, what are the risks even when you meet success?
Well, you might get, if you're going to push, you always run the risk of getting a push back. Like, you know, someone saying, I'll show you. But if you're in like the coaching mode and they say, I'll show you, you can just turn it around and say, yeah, show me.
Please show me. True. You know, what I was going to say is that in this instance, when you are pushing someone in a particular direction to do a thing that you say they must do because they're doing it wrong, do it like this, is that they don't actually learn anything. When my mom tells me, you know what, you're going to do this, this, and this, just do it. I could do it. I'll probably do a terrible job at it. Well, not today, but you know, the young Dan. And I will probably not learn anything from having just taken those orders. Now, it's entirely possible that that doesn't matter, but in the domain of knowledge work, in the domain of a professional environment, we believe in each other, or we at least hopefully have hired the right people. And assuming that this isn't some sort of prison camp where work is compulsory and our workforce is not being forced to do a thing, that's a very different situation. In those instances, yeah, you probably have to push everyone to do everything. Maybe not, I actually don't know. But the point being that there are very few instances where this has a tremendous amount of utility. That said, there are instances where it is useful. To Shane's point about like, can things get lost? Absolutely, there's going to be attrition in all of this. I will tell you that I try to inspire people all the time and fail and nothing happens. Or people get inspired and they don't really carry it forward. There's all sorts of variables involved here, and plenty of opportunity for failure along the way, and hopefully some learning. But the big issue here is that because of this limbic response we get in the push domain here, we are less likely to derive the full value of this experience because someone is compelling us to do something, probably in a way that we don't care for. And I think that it's important to recognize that even under the best intentions, it is very, very challenging to push someone into doing the right thing. And we do it all the time. Even me, certainly me, frequently. And even as an agilist and as someone that is constantly advocating for doing things, quote, the right way, I am just as likely to be the perpetrator of this thing. I will say that and we don't have to keep going on about this, but I'll just say that as a young Scrum practitioner, you first learn about Scrum, and so you become sort of this Scrum jerk that's just telling everyone how to do it right, and that everything else is wrong, which is totally antithetical to what this is about, right? This whole Agile thing, but we don't know any better. So yeah, you make mistakes, and hopefully you learn from them. I'm going to move on, but I will say that this is the ultimate distillation of what we're going for in terms of why the coaching stance exists and what it is attempting to achieve. So real quick, I mentioned the word stance, and some people don't know what I'm talking about, and that is okay. So in the Agile world, we're big on education, and we have these things called stances, and just like anything in the Agile world, there's probably a whole bunch of different derivations of this. So I'm going to talk about 4 stances. It depends on who you ask. There could be 8. It depends on what we're talking about. It's sort of like vertical and horizontal slicing. Like, it depends on what you're talking about, like what that means. So bear with me. But think of it like this. For the purposes of this discussion, stances are just modes. And it's just a way for us to help quantize our behavior, or our intention, I should say, as facilitators, different stances we might take. So your typical sort of Scrum Master stances go like this. You've got facilitator, teacher, mentor, and coach. All right, so these are our 4 stances for the sake of this discussion. So some of these are really easy and obvious, and some of them are not. If you had to describe what a facilitator does in like a couple words, what would you say? How would you do it? What does a facilitator do or not do?
Involve people.
Oh, go ahead. What's that?
Involve people.
Involves. Okay, I could see that. Involves them in what, though?
In a conversation, and make sure that everyone has a voice.
Okay, okay, that's a good one. Yeah, so that's like facilitating a conversation.
Yeah.
We got sort of guiding a group to an outcome. That's a pretty good one too. So facilitation is multifaceted, right? You could be facilitating a lot of things. If somebody needed to do their taxes and had never done it before, one form of facilitation might be to pull out the form and say, okay, well, I'm just going to walk you through these fields and help you understand what they mean. Okay. I'm not going to tell you what goes there. I'm just going to basically set this up, get you going, and hopefully take a step back if I can, but I'm here if you need me. So basically it's, or kind of what we were just talking about, like a process area, sorry, a conversational facilitator. So if I'm depending on the kind of psychologist I am, a marriage counselor might be there to simply facilitate the flow of conversation, of information back and forth, try to make sure that people are heard. You know, like you were just saying, you know, make sure everybody has a voice or that their voice is heard. Make sure that people's points are clear. So this is a big one. If you're interested in learning more about facilitation, facilitative listening, by the way, is a whole universe of information. I actually do a talk on retrospectives, quick commercial. I do a talk on retrospectives and I get into facilitative listening, among other things. And it is a whole deal. And it helps to underscore the need that particularly in group conversations, having an impartial person to simply help facilitate the flow of conversation, make sure that the conversation is productive. That is facilitation. The thing that is really that demarks a facilitator is that they don't necessarily get embroiled in the content. And it's hard. It takes real discipline. And so it helps to have something to focus on besides the actual thing that's being discussed. That's what facilitative listening can do for you, by the way, is just having a few of those techniques, understanding them and using them with intentionality can actually really enhance the quality of the conversation, and you will not be able to be pulled into it, because actually to do so, unfortunately, crosses that line from facilitator into participant. And then it's very, very hard for you to get that sort of objective credibility back. So anyway, moving on. That is essentially what you could say that, that the facilitator is a process guide, is one way to say it. So we know what a facilitator is. What does a teacher do, if not facilitate?
Well, they're supporting people in gaining new knowledge.
Yes. So body of knowledge, that if I'm a teacher, I just have a body of knowledge, I need to impart it to you or to a group of people. So teaching is different because number one, it's probably an agnostic body of knowledge. It wasn't invented by the teacher. The teacher is simply has some degree of mastery of this knowledge and will now impart it. Now teaching is, well, it seems the most clear one of these, in my view anyway. It is not a small thing, right? People have different learning styles. There's a lot of curation involved in teaching. You have to curate the information to make it relevant and to make it stick for the client, so to speak, or the student. But ultimately, educator, we all have teachers and pretty easy to spot. Okay, so what's a mentor? What's a mentor doing in a word or two?
There's somebody who's a subject matter expert who's helping someone else to become better at a particular thing.
Interesting. Interesting take.
Uh-oh.
Who else has? No, it's not wrong. It's just it's an interesting take. Why are they a subject matter expert, or what are they a subject matter expert on?
Well, to me, that's kind of the difference between coach and mentor. So if I'm just empowering someone and supporting them in reaching their goals or being, a different type of person or, achieving something, then that's a coach. But if I'm actually mentoring someone, that to me is like I'm sitting with them, I'm showing them how to do something. Example would be pair programming. To me, that seems like if you're working with one person who's inexperienced and one person who is experienced, there's a mentoring relationship there.
Okay, what makes that person with experience a mentor?
They know experience.
More experience.
Who's experience?
Their own experience.
Yes. it's from your personal experience. So you're like a personal guide when you're mentoring. So
And
if
it's also
somebody,
giving advice.
sure.
It's also giving advice. Yeah.
So
Also caring, isn't it, as well? There's the caring implied in a mentorship that isn't necessarily there in a coaching relationship.
well, I would definitely
I don't
disagree with that.
Care too.
Really?
But a fair point. Here's what I'll say is that from a mentor is, well, first of all, it's typically a one-on-one relationship. You can certainly have a one-on-one relationship with a teacher and potentially with a facilitator. I will just say that I think personally, in order to be effective at any of these, you should care a lot. That's my personal take, but perhaps it's not a prerequisite. But as far as mentoring is concerned, it's really you're providing guidance from your personal experience. That's the thing that makes mentorship special and makes it actually very intimate. So, well, if somebody comes to me and says, "Hey, Dan, I would like to become a jazz musician. What do I do?" I actually have a lot of ideas, and they're all based on my personal, very subjective experience. So I am not really teaching them the way. I am teaching them the way that I know, or that I'm aware of, based on my experience, the people I know, the things that I've seen. And the same is true for the examples that we talked about as well. But it's the important thing here is that a mentor is ultimately using the totality of their personal experience to essentially to advise and potentially to guide someone whom they have chosen to mentor and who has requested it from them. You cannot mentor someone by force. That's another important thing. Some people don't know that. Now, the coaching stance is the weird one. Okay, they're all a little weird, I guess, but the coach is a little bit different, and we've already heard some examples of what coaching is. Essentially, yes, it's a little weird. The coach is basically, in my view, an enhancer. That's the thing that makes the coach special, and often misunderstood. And as a coach at a big enterprise, and occasionally coaching people outside of my enterprise, the number one thing is that people want a thing from me that is different than what a coach would do for them, right? Fix my problems, shape up my team, make this better. They don't know what they're doing. I don't know what I'm doing. So all of these things are, potential conversation starters, and it's okay. It's honestly all right. People don't need to be experts on coaching in order to ask for help, right? And I will just say that as a coach, any kind of coach, and we probably have other kinds of coaches here today, you will use all of these. So it's not just, I'm not trying to suggest, again, we're sort of back to like the sort of quadrant model that fails us, right? A good coach is going to use everything. A good teacher is going to use all this. A good mentor is going to use, we're going to use all the stances. But the coaching stance is special because it's really about enhancing your clients, and I use the word client just agnostically, but I'll just say that basically the person that you're helping, you are enhancing their ability to learn. And you're enhancing their ability to learn in a way that is about resilient self-sufficiency, right? In things like Scrum, we talk about the empirical process. We talk about using sort of an experimental mindset. It's a way to wedge people out of their sort of mental models of, we can't change, or we have to change everything at once. And sometimes you can convince people to try it by saying, hey, look, this is just an experiment. We're just going to try to do this stuff and we'll see how it goes. And if you don't like it, it's okay. And that's a thing, right? But really what we're hoping to see happen is that people adopt an empirical mindset that treats all of their processes, all of their tooling, all of the way in which they engage their process, whatever that happens to be, whatever their problem domain is, treat all of the tools and processes as potentially disposable. As disposable in the sense that what is truly important is delivering value, as we say in business, or achieving our objective, whatever that may be, whatever success is. We want to be successful, and it's not about doing things, it's about getting to that place of success or getting on the road to success. And the way you do that is iteratively, little by little, right? And so what we're hoping to do as coaches is to get people to treat their lives and their, you know, their work lives or whatever domain you happen to be working with them in, as a series of experiments. Hey, try things. I'll help you make a plan, you know, and we'll see how it goes. And what I'm going to do as a coach is try to build capability into you to understand yourself and what you're capable of, and see what you can do to show me and to show yourself. Now, I will say this. One of the, and I'm not going to write a bunch of stuff on the board about this. I'll just say, like, what coaching is not. It is not about getting compliance. It is not about telling people how to do stuff. That is the opposite of coaching. That is that in that directive push zone. It's really not good coaching. And the reason why is twofold. Number one, it pisses people off, and they're usually not very good at being coached when they're mad at you. So it harms your ability to be trusted, to be a trusted partner. Number two, you're building a dependency around yourself as a coach. This is a big mistake. I mean, maybe it's a mistake that people make on purpose because they want job security or whatever. But if you build a dependency around yourself, you're not really building capability into anyone else. And so a good coach is about basically working themselves out of a job, as they say. It's a very old Agile cliche, but that's kind of what we're working toward. In fact, like a good PMO is trying to work itself out of a job, right? All the things that we do in Agile are really about getting the doers to know how to do their thing better and to improve their thing in whatever way works for them. And it's unique in every situation, right? The way that a group of people relate to each other is completely unique. You can't copy and paste relationships. Believe me, I've tried. It doesn't work. You can't do it. They don't like it very much. And so you need to make space for people to learn how to work together, relate to one another, and invent their way to do their thing. And then maybe help them develop tools to measure their efficacy. And there's lots of ways to do it, and I'm not going to get into a ton of that stuff. But anyway, this is sort of what coaching is about. Like I said, these other stances come in handy too, and you'll use them. But I will say this, as a coach, I don't really get into these other zones until much later. I really try to hold off on this as long as I can. Because even if I seem like the most trusted person in the world today, we should probably spend some time together and get to know each other first before I start giving you a lot of advice. It's going to be better for both of us. So with that, let's talk a little bit about the difference between a coach and a mentor, because it's a little dicey. And like I said, eventually, you know, I reach a point after a while, and it's different for every kind of engagement, but after a while, you are a trusted thought partner. And while you might not ever quite get to the place where you are giving a ton of advice, you may be able to make suggestions at some point. There's always risk, though, when you start suggesting things directly. And the two risks are, number one, you're building a dependency around yourself, and you're not really building capability into another person necessarily. And then the other risk is, what's the other risk? The other risk is that you'll give them the wrong advice, ruin your credibility, and what the hell did they make me do this for, right? That's not a good place to be. So we talked about a mentor being a personal guide. And we've got a coach over here, and they're sort of enhancing the client's ability to learn, to be self-sufficient, to make better decisions, all that good stuff. The mentor is working from personal experience. Now, the coach is really working from the client's experience. So in other words, I want to know what you've been through. I want to understand you and what you know, and I want to engage with you about that stuff. I don't want to build a whole universe of ideas and drag you into them and then try to somehow coach you, right? I want to help you where you are today. So let's base the content of this relationship on you and what your experience has been so far. And there's reasons for that we'll get into. Over here on the mentor side, as somebody had already mentioned, you got suggestions, prescriptions, right? Because somebody came to me and said, hey, I want to do this. And I say, I've done that before. Yeah, I'll tell you what I would do. Right, and that's great. Over on the coaching side, we want to co-create prescriptions. We don't want to give people solutions. We want to make them with someone. Co-creation. It's actually the key also for you bosses in the crowd. It is the key to good bossing. All the bosses I know complain that their subordinates are not engaged enough. I give them all the room in the world and they don't pick up the sword or whatever. It's kind of klutzy, but you get the picture.
I find good bossing seems like a bit of a contradiction in terms, Dan.
No, hey, we need bosses. I was a boss for 20 years. I was a good boss.
Me too.
But I will just say that and again, this is a little pre-agile for me, but I will just say that the best bossing I ever did was really in the domain of co-creation. Hey, this crew is awesome. They know more about what they're doing than I do. I mean, I can kind of do what they do, but not nearly as well. You all work like an amazing unit. I see how you're working together. I love it. This is what we need to see happen. How can we get there? What can I do to support you? Right? Now, again, we're getting into bossing and not coaching, but I will just say that again, these tactics can really enhance your ability to boss or to be a catalyst leader, as was just said. Over here in the mentor column, we've got giving the right answer. And then over here in coaching, it's really about asking the right questions. And this is actually a little escape hatch for a good coach that recognizes a lot of dysfunction. Instead of making declarative statements, as us egomaniacal agile nerds love doing, better to simply reframe it in the form of a question. Would you be open to? Does this look like blah, blah, blah? You can sometimes triangulate people into a space of awareness by asking them questions and letting them wander into the zone of enlightenment. Oh, yeah, you know what? You're right. I probably shouldn't throw things. I can see how that might be impeding my my team's morale. yeah, it might be. You might try a couple of weeks of not throwing things and see if things change. What do you think? We could measure it. Why not? All right. So again, there is some very specific kind of focus that we have here, and it's really critical. Again, as coaches, we get lost, right? Speaking of lost, Shane's lostness. We get lost because we get in the weeds, we get involved, we get emotionally involved, we get involved in what's happening. We get very, very involved with our clients, and that's not a bad thing to get involved, but it's easy to get lost, which is why it's good for coaches to have coaches too, to have, or at least a cohort of peers that are uninvolved, right? I'm sure my therapist has a therapist, and they need people that they can turn to. We all do. I have some that we can turn to and say, hey, look, this is what's happening, and I think I'm getting off track. Maybe you can just think this through with me, right? So it's for everyone. It's for everyone. So again, what we're trying to achieve is co-creating solutions and thereby building capability, confidence, self-actualization. You know, that's what Douglas McGregor believed, that self-actualization. He's famous for Theory X and for coming up with that. But really what he believed was that self-actualization, the realization, that was by the way, the term of art that you were looking for, Shane. That's the sense that you can realize potential in yourself, that you have actualized potential, you know? That is the thing that is most motivating to all of us. That is number one. It isn't money, it isn't power and influence, it isn't other things, lack of punishment, right? All the things that the more immature, structures think we need, right? We don't need any of that. We just need to find a way to get to that place that we envision, and to get there, not even all the way there, just a little bit. And it's like, oh wow, I could actually do this. I could run this marathon. So we're hoping to use coaching to get people there. Now, you can also achieve that same result by mentoring someone. Absolutely, you absolutely can. But like I said, it is a different kind of relationship, and it has its own trade-offs. So there are definitely trade-offs here. This takes a long time. This is not about immediate results ever. And that's another misconception about coaching. Can you just come in and coach my team for a day and fix them? Can you just give me some coaching right now and fix my relationship? No, I definitely can't. And really, like, mentoring takes time too. All of these things take time. Now, teaching, maybe it's quick. Maybe it is. Facilitation, it could be right there in the room right now. But these guys both take a long time. They do. And coaching particularly takes a long time, because anytime you're building new capability into another person or a group of people, it takes a lot of failure to really get there, to really get to that zone where transformation has occurred in some form or fashion. Any questions on this, by the way? I see people, the comments are flying. I haven't kept up, but if anybody has any thoughts or comments.
It's great. Lots of great engagement in the chat. No direct questions per se, but you're all welcome to unmute and ask if you want. We've got plenty of time, so don't be shy, folks. Don't be shy.
Don't be shy. He said as he erased everything.
No one's shy. Shane and Scott are on the call. It's cool.
I suppose that yeah, I'll come in with a question, or maybe a challenge around that. So understand it definitely takes time, right? If we want to, in a coaching space, unleash that true potential, but surely there's space to have those small moments of, like this meetup. You're coaching us. It's your. I can't know. I don't know how long you're in, but I was on this call about 20 minutes, and you've coached me. So there's, I suppose, there must be levels and like different spaces and depth that you can take something in coaching, and yeah.
I mean, I feel like doffing aphorisms like we do in meetups and like little conversations. I mean, I guess you could potentially call it coaching, but I really don't think of it that way. I really think of coaching as a longer term thing. But I mean, I guess so. I mean, semantically, I guess you can use it in the moment. And I will also say that if you're not a coach, I mean, I know lots of engineering managers that use these same kinds of tactics to engage their folks, or even executives, a lot of executives, good ones. So like, yeah, I mean, you can use these things in different sort of theaters of operation to good effect. And honestly, I mean, look, I should every sort of self-proclaimed whatever I am, person in front of lots of people talking, should always preface all of these conversations by saying, and I think Lisa Atkins actually just said this the other night, like all this stuff that I'm saying, it's, this is my perspective, and perhaps some people whom I've borrowed from, like Annie McKee with that whole exercise about the, imagine the person that inspired you all. None of these are original ideas, but in terms of my contextualization of them, some of this stuff is going to be very useful for some, not useful for others. Other people operate in a completely different way, personality-wise, than I do. And particularly in the Agile space, it's really about leveraging our differences in our vibe, our personality, our unique vibration that we bring. And so you may be able to do things in a very different way to good effect. And so you should always embrace what's working. This is the thing, when people come to me and say, hey, will you just help? My Scrum team doesn't do it right. Can you get them to do it right? Well, listen, I don't care if they do it right. Are they doing their job? Are they happy? Are things looking up? Are you all able to deliver value? How are they doing? Have you talked to them? And the truth is that if they want to do everything ass backwards and they're happy with it, cool. Why would we interfere? Now, again, it's really, and this sort of, I'm kind of spoiling the next chapter here, but the main thing is that what I am simply trying to do is kind of boil down a couple of because this is very soft material, it helps to have some kind of brass tacks, kind of practical approaches or mindsets to help access these things. Now, I will also say, and I say this about facilitative listening too, if you run down the whole menu of facilitative listening techniques, you will see all the things that you naturally do, right? And why? Because people are just naturally good, honestly. I hate to be cliche, but you know, Agile, the reason Agile is so popular is because it embraces our natural human inclinations. You know, people are naturally agile. It's really the structures, corporate structures, systems that we try to shove ourselves into, and we try to modify our behavior to serve the systems. That's what messes it all up. At least that's a very, very broad brush that I just painted with, but you get the point. And so in the instance of utilizing something like facilitative listening, if somebody says, well, I do all this stuff already, yes, you do, but if you really want to do this on a professional level, if you really want to be a great facilitator, you will do all of these things with great intention. You will really think and you will practice this like a discipline, because it is one. It isn't just something where you read a blog and you can do it. You need to practice it. You need to actually bring intention to it. I studied martial arts for many years, and it takes a long time to be remotely competent. And after a certain amount of time, and it's different for everyone, you reach a point where you can start doing things in a way that makes sense for you, because you understand the intention, you understand your own physicality, you've trained to a certain level of physical capability. And at that point, it makes sense to kind of start beating your own path. And so the same is true for things like coaching techniques and for facilitation techniques and for all other kinds of techniques, particularly in the realm of sort of social engineering and things like that, which are highly analog. The same may not be true for, like, you know, things like software development. Perhaps it's a more binary environment, but there's probably some similar utility. But it's a perfectly fair challenge what you're laying down, Shay. With that, I just want to go through a couple of basic guidelines that kind of that I try to keep in mind when I am about to embark on a coaching engagement. So take this for what it's worth. If you are a professional coach, this might be useful. If you are not, but you feel like that you want to engage someone as a coach, these are some things to kind of keep in mind. And we've covered some of this stuff already. The first one is really understanding values. So this is fairly typical Agile stuff. If you're assembling a new team, if you are really doing anything, if you are meeting someone for the first time, it always helps to know what they care about. So what we talked about before, the difference between mentorship and the coaching stance is really, one is about your personal experience, maybe imparting your own personal values as a lesson to someone else. In this instance, I care deeply about their values and I completely subjugate my own. I mean, I still have my own ethics of operation, the way that I engage with people for sure, but I am not imposing them on another, right? I actually am going to try to be as transparent, and I mean that, or perhaps translucent, but whatever the proper word is, as possible, because I don't want to make this about myself. I want to make it about what you care about. I need to understand your values. So whatever the area of focus is, you know, if it's a team, I want to know what the team thinks it's good at, what they think that where their gaps are, what they feel is most important. I want to know what their mission is, meaning what their job is, what their version of taking the trash off the streets and throwing it into the back of the truck is. I want to know exactly what that is, and I want to know why they do it. And I want those disambiguated. And I want them to all have the same answer to that question. And if they don't, then we need to work it out. Similarly, I want to know, what is it that you want to create? What is it that you want to create? Focus on vision. This is imperative. I want to know what you care about. I want to know what you're looking to create that does not currently exist. Tell me what that is. People want to talk about their problems. This is fine, but I'm not interested. Now, I might seem like I'm listening to you, and I am, I promise. But I'm also mostly listening to what's behind what you are saying. I want to understand as much about you and how this frankly makes you feel, and what is boiling beneath all of these problems. Because the truth is that, you know, in lean management, they talk about the different lenses, you know, the solution view, where you show up to the Gemba and you just start telling everyone how to fix everything without really understanding the underlying problem. You know, it's sort of treating symptoms instead of the disease, essentially. It's all going to lead you into a forever maze. Focus on what they want to create. What is that ideal state? If there's no ideal state, what is the optimal state? What does success look like? Just please tell me something. Tell me where you're trying to go. Well, I'm not thinking about that. I'm thinking about my problems. Well, your problems, they sound really bad. Please keep talking about them. Eventually, I'm just going to come back around to asking you, okay, well, what does success look like? Because the truth is that once we've defined what that looks like, it's a hell of a lot easier to galvanize, right? It's just like when we did this thing earlier, this thing I'm not going to drag over here again, that inspiration cloud, right? That was about vision. It was about being pulled. You can replicate that somehow. And when I'm engaged with a team that's in dire straits, they talk a lot about their problems. They talk about all the things that are holding them back, that are suppressing them. And that's okay. And it's good to get these things out, I guess. I mean, it's really for them. But I also want to know, okay, now that we've talked about all of that, let's talk about, what does success look like? Why don't we focus on that? Because once we really assemble that in some way, imagine it, envision it, sometimes you start to realize, you know what, we're a good amount of people here, or we're very smart, if it's just us two. We might be able to create some innovation that could maybe get us closer to that thing. What you're not going to do is get anywhere near there if all you're doing is chasing the rats that run through your, you know, run across your floor from time to time. That is a distraction. That's a distraction. Very, very quick story. I will just say that there was a team I met. They were a Scrum team, and they were, you know, they'd been around for a while, and their bosses took me aside and said, "Hey, you know that we quit doing Scrum. We started doing the Kanban. It's a terrible mess. Can you come in and just like teach them Scrum?" Okay, sure, we could do that. But first, let's just talk to the team. And so we did the whole thing, talked to the team. Team was fairly meh. Yeah, I mean, I guess we could do that. All right, well, this is how it works. If you're interested in trying it, you try it for a while, see how it goes. They had a lot of other problems, right? There was a lot of complaints that in their orbit from them, from the people around them. And it turned out that in, you know, spending some time with them, talking through Scrum, there was a lot of, they didn't really know what it was. They didn't know how it worked. Even on the most basic level, there was a lot of just misunderstanding. You know, this happens a lot. We make assumptions, right? We make assumptions. People know things, so we throw them on a team, and we just assume they know how things work, and they'll figure it out. And what it took was a true sort of reboot. That, you know, I mean, I'm a pretty good Scrum teacher, at least in so far as I can make it look like a lot of fun and really cool on a whiteboard. It doesn't make it any easier to do. That's for damn sure. But just by having sort of a kind of a vision of how it could be, right? Then they were galvanized. And all of those ancillary problems, not all of them, but many of them either disappeared or really came down significantly to the point where they were not really an issue. Now, that doesn't mean that they were perfect at all, but just by virtue of the fact that they were aspiring to do something and to deliver what their thing in a new and exciting way that they were really looking forward to doing, made all the difference. It was moralizing to them. And that is good stuff. That is, you can work with positive vibes. Now, to go in and berate them, to say, stop doing that and stop doing that, now we're just being directive. And honestly, you don't need an Agile coach for that. You can just have the boss do it, and it's fine. That's their job. In any case, focus on vision, whatever it is, in whatever shape it takes. And by the way, vision is not a determined thing. It's not something that you just decide, okay, that's the vision, and now we're done. It should be a moving target. It should evolve, right? The important thing is to actually go through the crucible of creating it. and recreating it and constantly iterating on it. That's what you want. You don't want to be satisfied. It's not about reaching some stopping point, right? Okay, moving on. I mentioned this before, but don't make it about you. So my agenda, I'll just say about coach. There we go. So you don't want to make it about the coach. You want to make it about the client. And this is really just an echoing of their values. It's very easy for somebody who feels that they happen to be a subject matter expert to walk into a situation and start experting. This is not a good way to co-create anything, right? I would even go so far as to say that if you show up to an engagement with a person or a group of people with a deck, you have already kind of lost them, right? Showing up with a bunch of stuff and requesting feedback is not collaboration. I tell people all the time, and they're always like, what, really? But don't they like that I did that? No, they don't care because you did it all, right? Better to show up with nothing and say, hey gang, we're gonna talk and it's gonna be messy. And then we're gonna create an artifact together. What do you think? Hate it? Cool, let's do it. You're gonna love it. But don't make it about your agenda. Make it about the client's agenda. And we can iterate on it. If it seems weird or wrong, that's okay too, because you don't want to judge. This is one of those things, people talk a lot about psychological safety or safety in general, and safety is not just about offending you with my coarse language. It's definitely that does threaten safety, but really what safety is about, in order to be innovative, you need to be operating with a sense of play. That doesn't necessarily mean constant fun either, by the way. It's a little bit weird. So I do some acting, okay? And I was working with a director who had a very unique way of working with actors. Now, I had been on a season of this TV show with a different director before, and it was a miserable experience. And it was tough. And the consequence was that the actors were not able to be creative, okay? It was very, very hard for us to create because we were so busy trying to take all of his direction constantly. And he would do things like model for us, essentially modeling what he wanted us to do, giving us line readings. By the way, if anybody is aspiring to be a director, don't do any of these things, please. It is a terrible way to enlist creativity, right? Now, I was anticipating more of this, turned out to be a different director. And then we showed up, and the first thing he did was he said, okay, well, there's not a lot of dialogue in this scene, so let's just do some stuff, okay? So, you guys can improv a little bit, but let's, maybe walk around this way or say something here, blah, blah, blah. This is kind of like what this is about. And he just kind of gave us a very basic frame to operate in. And he's like, well, let's just shoot one. And we did. And he was like, man, that was really cool. I love this part especially. This was great. And maybe when you get over here, do this. And so he's like building on what we're doing. And we're totally energized by this. And we're trying all sorts of things. And he's like, yeah, maybe not that, but this. And so there's this give and take that's happening. This is the space of creativity. And it was fun. And we take chances, and some of them don't work out very well, and that's cool. Yeah, maybe next time, not so loud. That's all good. This is good stuff, and we're fine with it. And here's the other cool thing, is that those moments in the show where we had to take very specific direction. I need you to look right here and do this. Okay, that's not great, but you know what? Sure, anything for you. You've given us like days and days to do our thing, and it's been great, and we've really made this thing together, and now you need me to do certain things, and I don't mind. Now, if all I ever do is take this very sort of micromanaged direction, it's a bummer, but occasionally you need it, right? It's fine. Look, we're here to do a job. It's okay, but this is what I'm talking about. We need to create a sense of safety to play, to fail, to learn, to build, to reshape. And we can't do that if we're scared. We can't do it if we're mad. We can't do it if we are emotionally preoccupied. we need to feel safe. We need to feel okay to do this. And it's a very specific kind of mood, right? You're trying to set a mood. That's really what this should be. And so when you're working with someone, it's very easy to, oh, man, that's really too bad that you did that. That was a mistake, right? I'm already taking a side now in this conversation. This is not good. This is not great. It's actually, I would even go so far as to say, judging the things that are being told to me that are happening to you, that is also possibly a mistake. Like, it's better for me to be really impartial, right? I watched this guy, Michael Hammond. If you ever get a chance to see somebody coach or talk, this guy, Dr. Michael Hammond, amazing dude. He came up with Lisa Atkins, and amazing Agile coach. And he operates more like he's on that show In Treatment from HBO. He's more like a shrink, but amazing practitioner. And watching him coach people, there is this amazing sense of safety that he conveys. And it's part of the fact that his vibe, he just happens to be somebody that you just, I don't know, you just kind of feel very open and say, I do anyway, I will say that. But the other thing is that I noticed that he was very careful. I watched him coach someone, and he was very, very careful never to really take sides with anything or anyone. And it wasn't that he didn't empathize, but he would do this thing. He would challenge these models, these assumptions. Like, I hear you saying that this person is holding you back or suppressing you. I want you to try. I'm doing an impression of him. This is terrible, but just try this on. Maybe you're the one who's suppressing. Is that possible? I just want you to try it on. I'm not saying that's happening. Anyway, he was really convincing when he did it. It kind of sucks when I do it, but the idea of just presenting the sort of the opposite point of view, not from your own perspective, like, I think it might be different than what you're saying. No, I don't know anything. I don't know shit. I just got here. It's not about that. It's about me just, hey, let's look at this from as many angles as we can. What are some other possible causes that this could be? What do you think? Let's really dig underneath the merry-go-round here. So challenging assumptions isn't really just about, it is challenging in a sense, but it's not challenging like you are wrong exactly. Although it can go there, because if somebody says, you know what, I could never get in shape, I would say, why not? I mean, I might not say directly, you're wrong. I might, depending on what my rapport is like with that person, but I wouldn't say it in a mean way, But again, I'm trying to challenge somebody's assumptions to get them to consider the possibility of the possible. Again, I'm trying to get into that cloud zone, So challenging assumptions, sometimes that kind of contrarianism, it's not exactly contrarianism. It's more like consider the contrary. It's more like a suggestion of contrarianism, I guess. It's contrarianism light. But by offering these possibilities, you kind of open up the world a little bit, because part of why people need coaching a lot of times is because they're stuck in their they're like on a track, right? And they can't get off because it's just this track of assumptions. And assumptions aren't always bad. Like, it's the shorthand that allows us to navigate the day-to-day and life and things. But it's good to inspect them, especially when you're in crisis. Let's really look at your models, your mental models, the shorthand that you're using. Maybe some of this stuff is not quite what you think it is. Let's try. I don't know that it isn't, but what do you think? And again, we're building capability into that person to question those things, because once you start doing it, you kind of get used to it. It just takes practice, just like anything. So challenging assumptions is critical. And it's really, it might be a little bit early to challenge assumptions, but it's never too early to plant the seed that assumptions may be challenged. And we'll talk a little bit about agreements. It depends on the kind of coaching engagement you're doing. If it's more like a casual one, then maybe it doesn't require an agreement. But these are the kinds of things that you may want to prepare your client for if you're going to have like a more longer term engagement with them. And the last thing is something that this is sort of the eating your own dog food section. you want to always work on yourself. So for me, I was pretty tired when we started this presentation, and I was having some cognitive issues. But luckily, my coffee kicked in, and I got into it, and now I'm here. So I will just say that in the future, maybe I will consider that I have to give a rather long presentation after a full day of other presentations, and perhaps I should rethink that. You know, or maybe there's something else. Maybe I'll look back on certain, you know, metaphors or similes that I've used that were perhaps not well thought out. Hopefully you all will help me remember those. I have a friend who comes to a lot of these who always tells me all of the different food comparisons that I make when I'm trying to illustrate how a lot of these instruments and tools work. Not a lot of food in this one, by the way, Amy. So anyway, but I'm always looking back to see if I'm doing well on how I could do better, because all of these techniques, even the very specific ones, there's a million ways to do them, right? It's going to be as it's really about, you know, like anything in Agile, it's about being prepared for the unexpected, about responding to change, different kinds of twists and turns. And how am I doing with that? Am I actually setting the stage in a way that gives people space, right? That's a big problem with me. I talk too much. Guess what? I talk too much. I bet none of you thought of that one. And so, you know, as a good coach, you don't want to do what I'm doing today. In fact, that might be why I do these things so much, is because it's an opportunity for me to talk myself out so that I can actually leave a little bit of oxygen in the room for when I have more formal engagements. So these are some basic guidelines. They're not rules, you know, but some of these are rules definitely for me. Getting the values down is so important, and people don't know often what values are, so you may need to help them understand that. But you know, ultimately, understanding just in a few words, you know, what is most important, because there's something called motivational interviewing. It's a little technique. I don't do a lot of tips and tricks in this one, but I'll give you one real quick. You know, if somebody tells me what they care about, what their values and principles are, and then they start telling me what they do, this is a perfect opportunity for a teachable moment where I can say, hey, you know what? You said that you believe this and this and this, and yet I see you just said you do this and this. So what do you see here? Does that mean anything to you? I'm asking, honestly. Maybe there's an explanation. There usually is. And that's okay, you know? But, you know, motivational interviewing is a way to kind of take data from your client or from the team that you are interfacing with, and then take more data and compare it in front of them and let them see for themselves and let them come to their own conclusion. Again, we always learn more when we get there ourselves versus when somebody just directs us there. Hey, you know what? You said this and you're doing this and that's wrong. Maybe it's not wrong. Maybe there's something missing here. Okay. I mean, look, this is totally safe. You can change your answers if you'd like. Maybe you don't believe this. Maybe this is somebody else's values. That's cool. Maybe you actually have a different set of problems. Let's keep talking, you know? Rarely will we get there very fast, right? The more complex the issue is, the more layers, it's going to take more time. All right, so real quick, when I'm meeting someone for the first time and they say, hey, because I am one of very few Agile coaches at the New York Times. In fact, I'm the only one right now. And so it's a pretty big organization. It's 4,500 people, and there's about 800 people in the product technology organization. The rest are sort of newsroom and marketing folks. But it's still a fair amount of people to be sort of the sole Agilist. Now, there's other people in the organizations that are awesome Agilists that I look to for guidance too. It's just coaching is not their full-time job. So with that, it sometimes requires a lot of preparation for me. And by this, I mean like preparing the client. Like if they actually want some long-term coaching for themselves or their team, it sometimes helps to actually do a formal coaching agreement. This is very Agile coachy stuff, so it might not be right for everyone, but I just wanted to kind of walk through this real quick because I think that this is one of those things that sometimes gets lost When I was a very young Agilist, I didn't realize that just knowing a lot was not enough, and that people actually had to request you, and not just request you, but really understand what it is that you have to offer and be really open to it, because otherwise you're inflicting your advice on people. And this is just being directive. And again, you're putting people in boxes, you're pushing. It's not a great way to build a relationship or to get good outcomes. So when somebody says, hey, I want some coaching, which happens a lot, the first thing I do is I sit down with them, and I kind of talk them through a lot of this stuff. What is coaching? Let's just make sure we both are talking about the same thing. So I will literally describe to them what coaches do, what they don't do, that kind of basic stuff. Before I even get into that though, I usually just want to hear from them for a good long time. Let's really understand, like, hey, what are you, what's on your mind? What is top of mind? I try to leave as much space as I can for people to tell me what's going on, because actually more than half the time, it is not the right time or environment for me. But I want to help them know that now, and not after I've been hanging around for a while. Not just because I don't want to be there, but because there's only one of me, so I have to be very careful. The other thing is, and actually Dave Pryor, who was here, I don't know if he still is, taught me that the first thing that you ask anyone in any kind of Agile engagement, particularly when dealing with leaders, which is who I talk to first almost every time, is what change do you want to see happen? Because the answer to that tells me almost everything I need to know about that situation. If the answer is, I need someone to come in here and clean up the streets, I know that I do not belong there, right? It is not a place for Agile, or at least not for Agile coaching. Now, again, I'm being very reductive in these hypothetical descriptions, but I want to know from the leaders, the people who can influence or literally direct the behavior of the people whom I'm going to help, to be on board with what I'm doing, what I'm about, what I'm not about. I might just be the wrong, in a bigger organization with like more Agilists, I might be the wrong coach. Maybe they need a DevOps coach. Maybe they need an XP coach to really be more like that Burgess Meredith sport coach person that actually tells people, specifically how to, good coding practices and things like that. That's a different kind of coaching, and that's totally valid. It's just not what I happen to do. Anyway, so I want us to collectively agree on what coaching is. I want to, that safety, I want to create safety. And this is more than just, saying, hey, I want you to be safe. You can tell me everything. It's really, sometimes it's about me actually kind of imparting a little bit about myself. This is something I learned from Ira Glass, actually, the This American Life guy. He told me that he has this trick that he does where if he wants people to divulge personal things, which is kind of his whole deal, that he actually usually starts by divulging his own vulnerabilities, whatever, just something about himself that not everybody knows. And that has a way of disarming people. So everyone has their shtick, honestly. I am me, I am like this. And so people have a tendency to not feel terribly threatened by me. And they usually feel like I will listen to them and that I will see them, to quote Jane, that I will be open to seeing them. And that's something that is sometimes lacking in some environments. So I can offer that, and a good Agilist will model the behaviors that they want to see in their community themselves. So I do my best to do that, and I think in some ways I can create safety that way. So however it is that you create safety, that is very, very important. This is a weird one, get permission. So this kind of goes back to not wanting to inflict your advice, your good intentions on people. This is weird, and everyone struggles with this. It's hard to ask for consent when you're talking to someone, but do it. You need to do it. You need to really make clear that this is a thing that you take seriously as a coach, and therefore they need to take seriously. Now, you don't have to tell them, listen, this is serious, consent, but you do need to, just by asking them, hey, listen, if you would like some coaching, we can do that. We can set up a time and we can do that. And this is what it is, and this is what's involved. If that sounds good to you, think it over. Don't even tell me right now on the spot. I'll give you a little bit of time. Just let me know. And we can try it. But I want to like deliberately set the stage for it. And so in whatever form you ask for consent, you need to get permission to coach someone. You can't just start doing it. It's really not good. And I will say that I've been in situations where I just did it and it worked out fine, which is not great for my story here. But I'm saying that you can get lucky if people are hungry for what you have and they trust you and you happen to help them in a way that they like, then you could just sort of stumble into a good situation. And that's really cool. That's usually not what happens. That happened to me the first few times and I was really lucky. And then it stopped happening for a while and it sucked. And I realized, you know what, I'm doing this wrong. I need to really rethink how I engage with people. So anyway, get permission is the headline there. All right, I said this before, I don't want to make assumptions. So this is really about me. Even if somebody has set this, sort of, sent me some context about what's happening, all this, when I actually engage with people, I want to forget everything I was told. It's a little bit like solve my problems. Your problems, I won't say this, but the truth is that whatever your problems are probably not the problems. Maybe they are, but let's not start with that, right? Again, it's because it's misleading and it's distracting from what we're trying to achieve. I don't want to make any assumptions that I know anything. I'm going to start from square one. And what's more is that I don't want to make any assumptions that you know what I'm talking about, that I know what you're talking about. I want everything to be as explicit as possible. All those, for those of you who've gone sort of beyond the CSM certifications, in a lot of classes, we have like these team launch paradigms that they teach us sometimes. I mean, even those of you that haven't been through it, I'm sure you've seen stuff like this, and talking about team agreements and things like this. And we think sometimes, oh my God, why are we doing this? It's so lame, right? Who cares? It'll be fine. Everybody's a professional. And you know what? Kind of like my story I told before, you can sometimes get lucky. Hey, we have great chemistry. Everybody shows up on time. Everybody pulls their weight. Everybody posts their PRs in the public channel where we can all see them, and everybody shares their work and tells us when things aren't going well. Okay, maybe. Yeah, it could happen. That's awesome. And congratulations. But what we do in Agile is we make explicit what is implicit. Make it explicit. Make no assumptions. There is so much more utility in being explicit about these things and saying, you know what? What do you mean? Can you please explain that to me? I don't, just tell me anyway, even though you think I know what you mean. And again, this is building capability into someone else to be clear and to learn how to articulate what's going on in a clear and complete way. Articulation is part of the thought process. If you do not articulate your thoughts, they are not complete thoughts. This is a hard lesson that we learn in adulting, but it is critical. And this is something coaches can do for people, or even non-coaches can do for other people that want their help. Be explicit, say what's going on, and don't make any assumptions, and don't assume that I know anything, Anyway, so this is good stuff. Next is this thing about active listening. This is not a thing, this is a thing that you do. I shouldn't assume that you know what I'm talking about. Basically, it means that I am actually listening to you and doing nothing else. This takes a lot of practice. In fact, there is a whole school of thought on like levels of listening, and it's very difficult. It's hard not to let your mind wander, to think about other things that you would like to say, to think about your agenda that doesn't have anything to do with this. Actual active listening, focusing in on what you are saying, what your client is saying, and actually acknowledging everything and stopping to paraphrase, doing some of those facilitative listening techniques that I didn't tell you about. These things have a way of confirming information, recontextualizing them, mirroring the information to make sure that it is accurate. And what we're doing is we are making explicit what is assumed, right? And what is implicit. We're making sure everything's on the table so that we know everything. That is going to be a work in progress always, because it just is. We're, humans have a hard time with this, just like, I guess, like all of God's creatures. Active listening is critical for establishing that trust and that connection. If you see me looking at my watch or looking at my phone or occasionally checking emails, I'm sort of taking you out of this whole experience. And why would you trust me? I'm not listening to you. I'm just waiting for you to finish talking so I can give you some advice or something, right? No good, right? You need to actively participate in the other person. It builds empathy. It helps you understand them. And it is not fake. It is a real thing that you do. It isn't just like pretending like you're listening. You are actually engaging with them. And while this sounds like common sense, it is absolutely not common. Most of us don't do it. Most of us don't do it. You need to have faith. This is the part that gets a little weird. I have to want more for you than you even want for yourself. I have to believe in you more than you believe in yourself. So when you say, I can't do that. I mean, I know that I want to do that, but I can't do it. I'm going to challenge that assumption. I'm going to ask you why you think that. And then I'm going to probably tell you that I actually think you can. I think you can do it. I can see you doing that. Maybe no one's ever said that to them before. Maybe that's the moment where you actually do the thing for them that we were talking about at the top, right? Oh, really? You really think I can? Yeah. In fact, I know that you can. I would be utterly unsurprised by you achieving this and more. And suddenly people start seeing things that they didn't see before, potentially. Might not work, but it's definitely worth a try. I have to consistently have more faith in you than you have in yourself. And I do. And it's actually part of the magic of being a coach that is not involved in your life, involved in the minutia of what you do. I can actually maintain enough distance to maintain that faith. Why shouldn't I have faith in you? Why not? Right? Faith is critical. This is sort of part of that, but the action here is to continuously advocate and amplify the good. So when you choose a course of action, and you say, hey, I decided I'm going to do this, and I think it's going to lead to this. And I'll think of 5 other things that it's going to lead to. Yes, it is going to lead to that. And it could also lead to this, this, and this. And it is amazing that you decided to do that. I am going to have so much goddamn faith in you. It's going to be ridiculous. But it really is helpful. It really is. Especially when things are not so great, and I will advocate for you and amplify the good both in our interactions, and I will do everything I can to amplify the benefits externally. So if there's something I can do to help you on this path, I'm gonna find a way to do it, and I'm gonna let you know. Hey, you know what? I have a thought. I could go and talk to so and so, or maybe we could set up a thing over here and do this. I don't know. I have no examples here, but you kind of can imagine some good ones. Use your imaginations, people. All right, and then the last one is what I said at the beginning, no troubleshooting. And this is tricky because I am one of those annoying mansplainers that want to solve all of your problems and tell you why everything is, how you can fix it. Oh, don't worry, you can fix that. So I really have to suppress this urge, and lots of folks do. But it's really important. Don't do it. Don't go there. You can still be an advocate and have faith and amplify the good without actually solving their problems, right? Because now you're veering into that territory where you actually are kind of taking the steering wheel from them potentially. And you're crossing that threshold. So it'll be a little bit better for you not to do that. Now, there may come a time down the line when you are trusted enough where you can potentially do that. And it's not going to crack the earth in half, okay? I'm thinking this is more in the early stages where you're establishing that relationship. It's good to hold off on troubleshooting as long as you can. If you can always hold off on it, then you're awesome. I'm not there yet, but I'm working on it actively. I'm actively listening to my inner voice. So you might be doing many of these things already, but you might not be doing some of them. And I just want to say that for me anyway, these are kind of must-dos. And I really, if I miss one, it's always a problem. You know, these to me are like sort of the minimum viable product of what I do. Even if I am not the greatest coach in the world, if I'm doing these things, I know that I am probably helping. So in any case, when as far as the coaching agreement itself goes, there's usually a preliminary consultation. You know, I kind of, I'll just put it over here. Consultation, come on, brain. And here I'll do like a little interview. Yeah, there we go. And this usually consists of like challenges, outcomes, really messy ones. There we go. You know, I might be talking about time frame, like, you know, what are you thinking, you know, in terms of what the engagement would look like. You know, again, I'd be asking about like what kind of change you want to see, gradual, not so gradual. Again, some of this is just to understand, like, is this really like a good idea, basically. The agreement itself is not a contract, at least the way I do it. Maybe some other folks do it differently. I'm not a consultant, so I don't really need to do a lot of contracts. But, you know, we're encapsulating the purpose of coaching, trying to get that down. It's subject to change. I really don't like a lot of documentation, just because I find that, especially this type of stuff, it changes and it grows and, you know, modifies over time. But we'll agree on at least some preliminary purpose and approach. Just kind of some general expectations, you know, what I can do, what I can't. Again, these might be logistical in nature, and, you know, we'll probably choose some sort of initial time frame. Maybe it's just a couple of weeks and we decide if we want to keep going. It depends on what it is. If it's just one person, maybe we'll just get together from time to time. In any case, by the way, that confidentiality thing is really right here. That's part of the safety, is to understand that this isn't a forum for other people. That said, I can't control if I'm coaching somebody and they want to go and blab about it to somebody else, I stand by everything. Okay, there's inherent risk there, but I can't stop people from doing it, so I don't really obsess about it. For me, I do not discuss my coaching engagements with other people unless it's in the most general sort of kind of instructional way. And I'm very careful because I work in a place every day. I have to be careful not to basically call people out. So good point on confidentiality. That would definitely be part of this agreement, to be sure. I would make that explicit. And then later on, there would be some sort of closing, kind of a closeout where a summary of achievements, what we did, you know, maybe continued areas of focus. But, you know, with this, and again, this is sort of different for different situations. If it's an individual, I might just tell them this stuff. I probably won't go through the whole rigmarole of making a document. If for no other reason than it's just, I don't know, sometimes it can seem a little icky, you know. But if it's with a team or a group, it's a little different, right? It's not quite as personal, although it's still, I would really endeavor to keep it between us. For Agile coaches, when we work with teams, a lot of times they want assessments. So I hate assessments because I just think that they are typically seen as weapons, even under the best of circumstances. I have a template for one, but I don't love it. I would much rather kind of co-create the path with the team and have a less formal kind of engagement. Now, it depends on what I am coaching the team on, but I mean, the areas that I coach teams on, I really, whatever documentation that they need, they already have, right? In terms of cycle time metrics and, you know, stuff like that. It's like, that's all good stuff. And I will show it to them and it's theirs. I am not here to tell you that you graduated, right? I really don't want to set up that kind of relationship. I really want to empower the team and then step away when I can. And I'm all around if you need me. I'll be around. Yeah, I'm right over here with these other folks. So in any case, I try to keep these engagements somewhat loose. That doesn't work for everyone in every domain. And again, this is one of those things where your mileage may vary. You may want to, you know, you may need to design a more formal kind of framework to coach in. But so far, this has worked pretty well for me. And then for one-on-one coaching, I mean, I have these more in conversational form because I don't want people to feel that they're sort of making a contract with me. But I do want them to understand, hey, listen, I'm going to challenge your assumptions occasionally. This is how I work. And it might be a little bit uncomfortable. So I need you to agree to try things. And if you're cool with that, we'll come up with the plan together, but we have to do it. Otherwise, there's other people that need me and I'll need to go work with them. And that's usually about as much policing as I need to do so far. But, you know, every situation is different. So like I said, and that's pretty much what I've got. Any questions or comments so far? Again, I have not been really watching the chat except for somebody yelling in all caps. So
no, you're good. You're good.
It.
Got about 10 minutes, so yeah, there's time for maybe a few questions. Yeah, definitely happy to open it up if you're good. Sure, that was great. Yeah, it was really good, very engaging. Yeah, I like the way you delivered that. Paula's got a question. Paula, go.
Hi. So I use your approach in coaching, and I've had some real great success with teams and individuals. My concern or issue has been where leadership thinks that an agile coach is someone that makes people deliver to a specific date.
Yeah.
That's about the understanding of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I blame some of the ways that frameworks or methodologies have been implemented.
Yeah.
Because I think they've given the understanding that, yeah, we're just going to make things go faster. So unfortunately, we're sometimes complicit in that too, because depending on who's asking what we do, you know, if some executive says, hey, in the elevator, what do you do, Paula? And you might say, oh, I help teams like accelerate their delivery cycles. Awesome. I have a team for you to work with. Go see them. Okay. I'm sorry, good question.
Good point, well made.
How do you coach leadership?
Yeah.
How do you upfront define the roles so that it's very clear what you're doing with teams and how you're doing?
I have a couple of approaches with this. So luckily I work in an institution that is very, very people-centric. I'm very lucky in that way. And so I'm part of many cohorts of Agilists that work in all kinds of environments. And just when I'm having a bad day and thinking, they don't love me enough. And then I go and hear some folks that work in a bank or in the Department of Defense or something. And it's like, oof, boy, I actually have it pretty good. And I'm very lucky. So I have the benefit of, I experience what you're talking about, which is essentially a delta between what we do and what we know that we do, how we deliver value, and how someone else thinks we deliver value. And the biggest problem there is that, they have power and we don't, and perhaps no one else does. And so we are sort of without allies. And so we get sort of painted into this corner of being these efficiency experts, right? So the best thing that we can do, the very best thing that we can do is go back to the beginning of time and tell everyone in charge that we are not efficiency experts. So failing that, failing reality, unfortunately, we have to sort of, who was it? Donald Rumsfeld said that you go to war with the army you have. And the army that we have is that we're plopped in the middle of this situation. And people in different boxes of the decision-making waterfall have different concepts and are making decisions that people in other boxes have to live with the consequences of. I'm not dodging your question. What I'm really trying to get at here is that you have to be explicit. You have to be courageous and face it head on. And they are the ones who made a mistake, not you, frankly. They're the ones that are wrong. You know, I mean, Agile is in my job description. It is literally in my title. So the principles are what they are. They don't get changed because I work here now. They are what they are. If you don't like them, I'm sorry, it's unfortunate, but I have to be courageous and really embody my principles and stick up for them. And that may require me to have an uncomfortable conversation with someone with much more power and influence than I have. This is actually the thing that we actually encourage. So for those of you that don't know, I know most of you do, but I'll just say, like, in Agile, you know, it's all about self-organized, self-managing teams. And I mean, truthfully, not every single team is like that, but that's sort of the lodestar that we're aspiring to. And it requires leadership to support teams, not to sit at the top of the pyramid and control how they do their work and exactly what work they do. It's just a different paradigm. And so we have to stick up for that in every instance that we can. And that sometimes means that we have to throw ourselves on these unfortunate grenades. I did is that there were a lot of people in my environment that just didn't know any better. And so obviously having preliminary interviews wherever you can is critical. This has been a huge, huge help to me, because I used to just plop into teams and start agiling, right? And the teams liked it, but then their leaders were like, whoa, what is this? I thought you were something else. Oh yeah, oops. And so I don't do that now. Now I sit down with the people in charge that could potentially disrupt what it is that I can offer. And I have a real frank conversation with them. Hey, you know what? This is what I'm about. If you need compliance and discipline, this may be more of a job for management, but I am not a tool of management. And I make that very clear every chance I get. The other thing that I do where I work, it's a relatively big company. It's not the biggest in the world, but it's pretty big. I teach 4 classes a week that anyone in the organization can come to. And it's been a real godsend to start doing that. It started with 1 and it grew into 4. And I teach all kinds of different topics, but anyone that has been to any number of Agile coaches can actually, or Agile classes can attest that there's a lot of overlapping material. So I can embed some of these things in everything that I teach, to the point where I probably said it to enough people now that it's sort of starting to replicate out into the environment. So if you can create a space away from the rigors of day-to-day work, but still inside of the theater of your job, you can kind of take a stand on certain things away from the situations, just in a strictly theoretical setting. And people can know what you're about, and they can tell their colleagues, and eventually people know. Now, again, I work in a different kind of environment than some, so this might not work for you, but that's how I try to head it off at the pass, which is kind of what you're getting at.
Yeah, so for me, it's being very clear in interviews. It's publishing a lot, and it's being part of external communities and learning ecosystems that support the way that I'm an Agile coach.
There you go. Yes, it's a beautiful thing to have some community to fall back on, and any kind of community that you can build inside internally as well. So I, as Seth said, I host a decent sized meetup that is a New York Times meetup, but it's external. There's an internal one, and there's also other ones that I'm involved with as well. So yeah, having that community is a beautiful thing. Also, if for whatever reason you find that you're in the wrong place to do what you do, it's good to have community, because it's good to have some escape hatches. Anybody else?
Thanks, Dan. Unfortunately, we're getting pretty close to the end of time. I like to kind of finish these things on time, and I'm conscious people probably got other places to be. And for Shane and I'm looking for others on the call. Monica's still on the call. It's 1 a.m. in the morning. Well, hey, this has been the best 1 a.m. in the morning for ages. So there we go.
I second that stuff.
It was great. I tagged Sharon and said you should come along. So I think it's been brilliant. I'd love to take more questions, but yeah, it's been a really great 2-hour session, Dan. And I'm probably going to free you up as well from fielding more stuff. But
I should, yes. My wife may leave me if I go on any longer.
Mine's is gone. She's gone. I'm on my turn now. Everyone's asleep.
If anyone here wants to talk more, you can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me on Meetup. You're welcome to hit me up. I always love talking about this stuff. So if we didn't get to you and you wanted to talk more, don't be shy. I'm very friendly, I promise.
Brilliant. No, it is, and that was great. I loved it. It had a great workshopy feel to it, and you didn't have any slides, and it was very interactive. And I loved the way everybody engaged.
No one had to do anything.
No, thank you. No, you asked questions, and there's a lot of knowledgeable people on the call, so I think it was very interactive, and I loved everyone's contribution. So, thanks for doing it.
All right.
Enjoyed hosting you, and thanks to everyone for joining us. Really good session, and I'll give you a wee round of applause because I'm unmuted, so you can join me if you're muted, or do a virtual applause, or I can see people applauding.
Thank you.
Yeah, brilliant, great session, and
Right,
I hope we'll catch up again soon. And thank you all for joining, and I'm sure I'll see you at some other sessions before we bring the festival to a sort of close on the weekend. But still plenty more in the calendar. So thanks for joining. Stay safe and enjoy the rest of your day, wherever you happen to be. I should probably go to bed. Right, folks, take care. All the best.
Good night.
Good night.